Welcome back to the channel for another tactical preview of Bournemouth's games. This time, of course, it's going to be Bournemouth and Chelsea. And I'm joined by Zach. You guys make sure you go and check out his content over on his channel. Absolutely great stuff. Is it Jalab or Jalab?
But you know what, mate? I've said it a million different ways. It's been said to me a million different ways. Either of those two is absolutely fine. Jello is what I would say, yeah.
Yeah, well, I'll put all his links in the description, so you guys make sure you go and check him out, subscribe, watch all his videos, and subscribe to me if you guys can, because going to be doing this every week with your favorite content creators, diving into sort of the tactical nitty gritty of how Bournemouth can hopefully get some more points on the board and push for Europe, hopefully. But anyway, let's talk about recent form. Chelsea, it hasn't been great in the last few games, has it?
No, not so good. Not so good. I think that's safe to say. The Christmas period for Chelsea in the last couple of years in general hasn't been amazing. We've seen a few managers kind of have their jobs go under fire during that period. Whilst it's not been great, it could have been worse. Obviously, we could have lost every single game. Picking up points here and there at the end of the season, I think, will be hopefully beneficial. There's been a few ups and downs, but it's also like there's finite moments. Like, for instance, in the I don't know Everton game, I think we should have probably had a penalty with Jordan Pickford. The Crystal Palace games, there are arguments that maybe the challenge from Mitchell was a penalty. I'm a little bit more 50-50 on that one. And in the Fulham game, that one comes down to a bit more of our own mistake, which we'll get onto in a little bit. But say for instance, the penalty against Everton goes our way, that result looks 10 times more positive. You get a penalty against Palace, that looks 10 times more positive. I'm still a little bit... I'm not a massive fan of the penalty we gave away to Ipswich. I thought that was never a penalty. See, these things go for and against you, but they hopefully do level up towards the end of the season. So yes, not amazing right now, but hopefully we get back on track, and ideally that'll be against Bournemouth.
Yeah, to be fair, that's a good way to look at it. I think it is swings and roundabouts, and if it all comes badly in one period, it can look worse than things are actually going.
Exactly.
I say we're in a good patch of form, unbeaten in 8 in the Prem, which is a record for us. Beat Everton in sort of not a beautiful win, but I think anyone who plays Everton, you can't really have a good game against Everton. Like, they're just really boring to play against. But we got the points, which is like really, it's a sign of a good side, isn't it? When you get the points, even though perhaps not everything went your way. So pretty happy with where we are right now, 7th place. So can't complain. And we'll just get right into how Bournemouth can win firstly. And you talked about it already. Mistakes, is that sort of a defining of your recent form?
I think people sometimes forget that this is the youngest squad in the league. And so because of that, when you have a backline, like against Palace, we had someone making their starting debut for Chelsea in Josh Archibong, who I think is a fantastic player. You got Levi Colwill, who again is only early 20s. Malo Gusto is early 20s. Your most experienced player there is Cucurella. And I think this is where you can sometimes see things like all it took there against Palace was, say, a ball in from Sanchez into Cole Palmer under a little bit of pressure. Maybe he goes long, but he is being asked to do this kind of passing style football. Puts into Cole Palmer. They managed to win the ball after pressing him. And then we concede, and it comes from our own mistake. And I found that that's been a little bit of how things have gone for us this season. Pressing us, like even in the Spurs game, which obviously we won, 2 of the goals come from pressing Cucurella, which he might slip, and those little mistakes I think can really hurt us. I think you also have to give a little bit of credit to the other teams for managing to press really well. But in these elements, I think that's where we're struggling with sometimes. Maybe making the decision, you know what, in this moment you go long. But then at the same time, I can say that now against Fulham, Sanchez went long, and they win the ball back and go on the counter and score. So again, works both ways, but I think it's just maybe recognising the certain moments when to do certain things. So against Fulham, he had the pass there, the simple pass. Against Palace, maybe you notice that Palmer has 2 men on him and that's not the moment to do that. But then also it's worth noting that in football, like, those moments, if that works, Palmer turns, beats two men, and he's through on goal, and there's a Chelsea chance. So that's kind of what I feel like Maresca's football's been this year, is almost high risk, high reward. And at the start of the season, or at least the first, I don't know, 15, 16 games, 15 games, Chelsea had a lot of reward from that. And actually now we're starting to get a little bit more unlucky, and get punished for these mistakes.
Yeah, definitely. So do you quite like to build it out of the back? Is that correct?
It's we can go long. Like, we can go long. I think it's funny. Maresca's ideal football is not transitional. I think Chelsea, at their best at times, are a very transitional side. What he wants to do is be able to control the game, have all this dominant possession, and have it a little bit slower and dictate it as he likes. I don't think Chelsea are at that level yet. I think we can get there, and we have definitely the players to do that, but players need to learn and get used to situations and adapt. And so I think the answer to your question is yes, that's what we want to do, but sometimes we can't do that.
Yeah. And I think because you talk about the press, and that's, I mean, it's a bit of a cliche at this point, but that is something that we really thrive on. And it is the philosophy of our football. And yeah, I think pressing you into mistakes could really be a benefit for us.
Well, there's a moment where, I think what's actually impacted us quite a bit is not having Lavia. Lavia really is so press resistant. Like, he's such a chill guy. Always makes the right decision. Turns beautifully. And there was that period where we saw him partner up with Caicedo. Caicedo's doing a lot more of the dirty work and also carrying the ball forward when needed to. And then Enzo Fernandez, especially in that Tottenham game, was a little bit further forward, almost playing a little bit like 10. And that midfield is to play the football we want to play. That's the ideal midfield. The issue is Romeo Lavia has been injured. I don't know if Romeo Lavia is going to be fit to play Bournemouth. Fingers crossed. Hopefully he is. I think that'll really help us out. It wouldn't shock me if you saw Romeo Lavia come back into the side and suddenly results start kind of going on a positive spin again, or a positive trajectory. And so I think, whilst Caicedo is amazing, he really, really is, and he's also not too bad as a press resistant player himself. The issue is that he's not Lavia. Lavia is unbelievable at it. And I think that's kind of where because it's not like we're getting absolutely spanked and we've conceded 5 goals because of mistakes. It's like you get away with most of the game, but all it takes is one to go against you, and that's what's happened.
Well, another area of weakness for you is your right-hand side, really, isn't it? It's like the right winger, essentially. Is it because it's Neto there quite a lot, but also Madueke? Is the problem with both of them?
I think that it's not, but I'd say I wouldn't say they're the problem. I think the issue is we're just not getting enough out of them. When you have a player like Cole Palmer in your team, who is everything, the creator, the goal scorer, everything goes through him, and normally everything is finished off by him. And when you know how good he is, obviously your intention is probably, let's get Cole Palmer the ball, because he's got the best opportunity to finish it off. I think they're a little bit, I think, say for instance, Madueke's a little bit streaky, so he can go through elements where he's on top of the world and unbelievable on the wing. And and it actually has to be said, they both work very hard. They both work very hard for the team defensively as well. And I think Maresca loves that about them. And they are both good for different kind of games. I think Neto is a little bit more of a pacey kind of winger. But what I want to see a little bit more from Neto is him shooting. I want to see him take the opportunities a little bit more. And what I want to see a little bit more from Madueke is actually being a little bit more creative. And it's these things where I think in a game against Palace, all it takes is Neto winning the penalty, and we all sit here and go, "Oh, what an amazing player! Oh, fantastic! He's done that brilliantly." If Cole Palmer slots it away, and I think that's the thing. At the start of the season, we were scoring goals for fun. Everybody was chipping in. People getting, 1, 2. Obviously, Madueke got a hat trick at Wolves. Whereas now we're becoming a little bit down to Cole Palmer again. And I think that's where things become a little bit of an issue. I actually think Jadon Sancho's done pretty well on that left flank. I thought he had a fantastic game against Palace. And so that's why I maybe kind of moved it more to the right side. But even Jackson more recently has dropped off as well. That probably maybe goes on a little bit to my third point, which we'll get on to in a bit. But look, when Chelsea have someone who looks super exciting, like this Willian Estavo kid coming from Brazil next season, that side of the attack is going to be under a lot more scrutiny as well. They're going to have this, obviously, this super exciting teenage wonder kid. Again, I think people might get a little bit too excited too early on, but we'll see what happens. So for right now, yeah, I think I could probably, if I'm comparing, say, the wingers, basically, and I'm comparing Sancho to Neto and Madueke, and obviously the Mudryk situation is Mudryk situation, can't really say much about it. Sancho is up here at the moment, and the other two are kind of a little bit below us. So I want to see a little bit more from them, really.
Yeah, I think especially because Kirkes is our left back and he's a really strong point of our team. And last season, I would have said like he's quite rash defensively, and I could see him getting beaten by Madueke or Neto. But this season, he's really stepped it up, and I think he should. I'm pretty confident that he'll be able to sort of hold him down. And he's got Howson as the left centre back.
Oh, he's unbelievable. Who do you think is the right winger so far to have caused the most issues for you guys? Like, obviously, we played you, kind of got away with a nice 1-0 win in the end, away from home at Vitality. Again, Sancho did really well on that left wing, but I'm trying to think. I think it was Madueke on the right. Did that seem to cause much?
Because I felt like in that game, the chances for you kind of came later on, and obviously so did the goal. And it was with Sancho coming onto the pitch. I feel like I think that game in particular was more one that sort of evened itself out towards the end. I'm not sure about the right. Like I can't remember a moment this season where.
I mean, you've been unbelievable, really.
And yeah, but in particular, Kirk, like I can't think of Kirk as getting beaten all that much, and it's perhaps our right backs which might be more of a problem. Which I did write something down to talk about him later, but essentially, Smith I think is still out. Araujo's been out for ages, so it's Max Aarons who hasn't really played, or James Hill, who's like basically an academy product for us. So. Yeah, I'm pretty confident that I'll probably jinx it now, but I don't see much coming for you down the right-hand side. But as we'll get into it later, Cole Palmer is definitely your area of strength.
Of course.
Your third point is your clinicality.
Yes.
Yeah, I was looking at your XG. Sorry, I was looking at your XG, and you missed 4 big chances against Ipswich, 3 against Fulham, 3 against Everton. It's not great, is it?
I mean, over the season, I'd like to know. I don't know off the top of my head I'd like to know what our XG at the moment over the season is. I don't think we're kind of balancing out. It feels like at the start of the season, it felt like we were overperforming, and especially compared to you guys. Like throughout the season, you guys have been underperforming in front of goal, which is mad considering the position you're in, right? I feel like for the start of the season, we were overperforming, and then more recently, again this Christmas period, underperforming. The amount of chances we had against Ipswich, the amount of chances we had against Crystal Palace, like against Everton, we actually probably didn't make too much. Like I think it's fair enough to say it's probably. Well, to be fair, I say that first half Jackson probably should have at least got 1, but still, this is where I think there was a lot of talk, obviously, throughout the season about Chelsea. Are they in a title race? And Chelsea fans going, no, we actually don't think we are. And this is kind of why, like, we don't have, say, a Erling Haaland and I love Jackson. I think he's amazing. I think he can become something really special. But what he lacks is a clinical ability, especially in kind of a poacher. I think he's amazing at everything else. I think he dribbles with the ball fantastically. He presses and works really hard for the team. He becomes he's like a useful asset to have, especially for someone like Palmer. The issue is if you want someone there in that 6-yard, 12-yard area to just tap it home, like he did against who was it in the first half against Newcastle earlier this year for the goal that Palmer plays a beautiful ball in. Neto puts it across, he taps it away. He just doesn't do that regular enough, and I think that's what you need. Someone that's clinical, someone is always going to be doing that. And it's tough because I don't necessarily think we should also change out Jackson either. You just want him to get better at that, and hopefully by next season we'll see him doing that a lot more. But those are the issues. And again, this is what I mean by, say, Neto, Madueke, and even to a degree like Sancho. Sancho's creative is creativity is amazing. His actual maybe shots on target. I know I read an interview saying that basically he's been asked by Maresca to take more shots to try and get more on target. I think that's kind of down to all of our wingers to take more shots. Like a lot of it is just not really happening. Maybe Madueke is actually doing that, but the others aren't. Like Neto definitely isn't. And I think we're just not being clinical in front of goal. That's the other side of it, really. And that comes down to Jackson, maybe more primarily Jackson because he is the striker. But it's tough to take him out of the team because he does so well. And like in Nkunku, for instance, when he's been there, hasn't really been better or anywhere near to what Jackson's done, to be honest. And so yeah, in the last 6 games, I would say being clinical in front of goal has been what's really, really kind of hitting us at the moment.
Yeah, it's hard to say whether this will really be a big impact, but we won't have Kepa in goal, of course, because he's.
So you didn't play him last week, did you? You played
no. So Kepa went home in the midweek to Spain because he had twins.
Oh, okay, interesting.
So we did play Travers against Everton, and Everton didn't have a shot on target the whole match.
Didn't warm him up then, didn't get him ready for it.
Yeah, it's hard to judge that.
But then you must also feel the same, right? Because again, as I said, XG wise, you guys are like the biggest underperformers in the league, and still obviously been unbelievably well where you are. You also have that issue to a degree, and isn't it Evan Nilsson's also out as well, possibly?
Yeah, Evan Nilsson is definitely out, which we'll come on to, which is a big loss. In terms of, we are the biggest underperformers. It's about 10 we're underperforming by, but we've missed a few big chances, but like it doesn't feel like there's not many games after which I've gone, oh, like we missed a lot of big chances. Yeah. I think with us, the reason our XG is so high is because we create a lot of like medium chances rather than missing a lot of big chances.
Oh, okay.
And I think it's good that we are creating a lot of medium chances because we have scored a good amount of goals. And so then I would almost look at that as a positive. Like, yeah, we're underperforming our XG statistically, but we are creating chances and we are putting some of them away. And so I wouldn't say we have a problem with clinicality at current. And we have a lot of players around the team that chip in as well. Like Evan Nilsson only has 5 goals in the league, but Kluivert's got 6, Semenyo's got about 5, like Dango's got 3.
Didn't Kluivert also get a hat-trick of penalties as well, which helped?
The fact that we've scored 5 penalties this season helps the fact that the XG is so high.
Yeah, true. Actually, good point. Yeah, really good point.
XG for a pen's like 0.8. So how many goals have we scoring that's 0.8? But
very true.
Generally, it does seem like we have a good chance this weekend. Not this weekend, actually. It's midweek, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But you are still a very good team. So we'll get on to how you can win now. And I mean, it's an obvious one to say, of course, Cole Palmer. But is there something like less obvious about him that means he's being so effective? Or is it genuinely just his output is so good?
You know, there are certain players who like we had one in Eden Hazard, obviously a bunch of years ago now, who are just I call them guarantee players. Like if I was doing FPL, it'd be like you get Salah in your team, you get you'd get Haaland in your team. These guys who are guarantees to get you a ridiculous amount of points. And I think Palmer is basically that. You look at his career at Chelsea, he's basically at a goal and assist every game he's played for us, which is just a ridiculous record to have. But he plays like that. And I know this season there's some weird criticisms about how he hasn't done it on a few nights. And he's definitely, I think we've seen him become a little bit more human this season. But that's also because other teams know about him now. Last year, no one knew who this guy was. Whereas now he's getting not just man-marked, he's getting double man-marked and things like this. What I think the interesting thing about Palmer is that I don't think people talk about enough is his creativity. I think everyone talks about his goals and his finishing ability, which is fantastic. And he always picks the right shot, the right kind of power, the right shot selection. It's always perfect in that front. And it's completely understandable to talk about that. But his creativity genuinely is to think about how many goals he's got and all this and assists so far. And to think last season, the amount of chances that were missed by his teammates in front of goal. to think he could be even more than he is genuinely outstanding, and incredible to even mention. And so I think his creativity is something that's really underrated, and something that I think maybe Chelsea have had to rely on a little bit more. The goal against I can mention it a few times, but the goal against the assist for Enzo Fernandez against Spurs is ridiculous. A little bit of dribbling and then a nice little ball into the box where albeit a very good Fernandez finish. But I think it's a little bit. If I did say 38 of these with everybody and everyone's team I was kind of talking about, I'd always bring up Cole Palmer as one of the talking points, because you have to. Like, this is somebody who every manager, when he's going into his team meetings about playing Chelsea, goes, number one, Cole Palmer, like, we stop this guy, and I think it's very effective to kind of, or I think it's shown how effective he is, that still this season, whilst those team meetings are happening, he's still being super effective, and that's why, like I mentioned earlier, I want to see more from the others as well, because it allows him to get freed up a little bit more. But yeah, the guy's a freak. Like, the guy's absolutely outrageous. I'm trying to think back to the game again. It's only been like half the season yet. I feel like it's so long ago, the Bournemouth game, but I can't quite remember how he was in that game.
Neither.
Yeah,
I have a weird. I'm probably wrong. I have like a weird feeling like he might not have played, or is he?
I don't remember. I
Just
genuinely don't
remember
remember.
like him really.
Well, that's probably a good, in terms of a Bournemouth point of view, that probably is a
Yeah.
good thing. What I will say as well, Palmer at Stamford Bridge is another level as well. There's something where he's one of these entertainers. Like, he's an entertaining player, and he thrives off of like getting the crowd onto him. He likes taking these risks, and so yeah, it'll be interesting to see how things go. I was at the last game of the season last season, which is obviously Bournemouth at Stamford Bridge, and we saw obviously Caicedo score an absolute worldie goal. But again, you guys probably were unlucky to lose that game. You at least deserved a draw after the chances that you had as well. And so, yeah, I'm interested to see how this goes. But yeah, Cole Palmer has to be one of the guys to talk about. And I think as an opposition fan, surely, like, when you think about playing Chelsea, he's the guy that is at the forefront of your mind.
Yeah, not looking forward to playing Cole Palmer. I feel like he's good at getting a shot off. Like, he'll get a shot off.
Yeah.
He's not afraid to. Do you know what I mean? A lot of players will dribble and they'll pass. He's not afraid to, and I think he's very good at them from sort of like just outside the box or just inside the box.
Yeah.
Like that goal. God, I can't remember who it's against. He puts it through the legs of the defender and just slots it into the.
Everton last season at the Bridge. But then even like think about the Fulham goal just a couple of weeks ago. I know obviously Chelsea got on to lose the game, but the finish is outrageous. Like, it's not like he's like put incredible amount of power on. He's just perfectly like passed it.
Yeah, I think that was the one I meant. Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
And because I say again, and I'm not hating on Travers because I love him, but I'd say his shot stopping, especially from like distance, can sometimes be a bit. This is definitely his weakness, and I think if Palmer just gets the ball there with just a tiny bit of space on the edge of the box and he just releases a shot, I could see him 100% scoring.
That's interesting you say that, because that is, I would say, probably one of his ideal positions. Like, edge of the box, can have a couple of shots from there. And normally, like, again, in those more recent games, which we've had maybe not super positive results, he's still managed to test the keeper really well. And like the Ipswich keeper, who's been with them since League One, who's been playing more recently since he dropped Muric, made some unbelievable saves against Palmer. But again, from that exact kind of position, almost where, you know, the semicircle is on the box, like exactly there.
Yeah, I think if you've done your research, you'll be taking a few shots, kind of like pot shots from distance to test Travers.
Interesting.
We'll go on to the sort of the second biggest talking point of this section. Evan Nils, literally this morning I woke up and gone on Twitter and he's done his metatarsal, which is like something in the foot, and going to be out. Like, I mean, we don't know, they haven't said anything, but like generally for these injuries, it could be the season.
It's what Rooney did back in the day. I mean, loads of players have done it since, but Rooney did this year, like back in the day, against was it Chelsea? It might have been against Chelsea actually. Before he went to the Euros, put him out until the Euros and kind of done him in. But yeah, it's not a nice injury. It's not a nice injury at all.
No, yeah, and I mean, he's been so important to us. Like it's hard to explain because he doesn't score many, but like he's just been such a good Solanke replacement because he kind of does everything that Solanke did. And our backup will be NSU now, who this season, like he's got a couple goals, like comes off the bench. He's been okay, but
He
a lot
started
of
against us last season, I think, or he definitely featured against us last season.
Solanke was on the bench like
Yeah.
for that reason. But yeah, I'm not too confident. Like, because the thing with Unai is right, the pressing he lacks, especially compared to Evan Nilsson, which is obviously like our big thing. Speed and creativity. I feel like it's just his player profile, which isn't a problem with him, but it kind of is for our system. He's not going to pick the ball up and run and play it off. He is good at like holding up the ball because he's a big lad, which I think is good. It's important that he's good at that, and he's good. Like he's a good finisher in the box. Like you say, Jackson isn't. I feel like that is where Unai kind of is. Like
a good poacher.
He's a good poacher. Yeah. So I feel like if we adapt our style, we might be able to play well with Unai, but I don't think we'll be able to play like we have done with Evan Nilsson and Solanke last season and get the same results that we kind of want to see. But yeah, I'm not too confident with Evan Nilsson out and Unai in.
Interesting. I mean, I remember at the start of the season he started a little bit slow, but obviously he's now he was absolutely fiery. I mean, I always think back to United were after him like 4 years ago, and they were quoted at like 100 million or something for him. So it's good to see him, doing very well because Solanke was not an easy guy to replace.
Not at all. Like I really predicted for this season that we'd kind of be not like relegation, but sort of like down 14th, 15th, 16th, and been proved absolutely wrong. But you can see why I have those fears because
I said Nuno would be the first manager to be sacked, and that's not happened, is it?
that is rough. That we can move on to some of your other strengths. Transitional play. Talk to me.
Yes. Well, this again is something which I mentioned earlier that I don't think Maresca actually likes this. I don't think this is what he wants. He wants it to be a complete control of his game, and he doesn't have to worry about the opposition, like getting the ball, because he's got it in super control. But the players that Chelsea have are really good at this because also they did this a lot under Poch last season. This is what kind of Poch's game plan was at times, was us to just get on the break, get on the counter, transition, and God, we have a quick squad now who can get up the other side super quickly. Like, look, Jadon Sancho isn't the quickest of players, but he can do okay at it. Madueke, I think, is quite fast. Neto's rapid. Jackson's rapid. Cole Palmer is by no means slow. And I think sometimes people think transition is just about like, sprint up there and get a goal. And that's not actually quite how it is. It's about like picking the right pass and making the right decisions. And we have proven to be really good at that. There have been certain games where things haven't like quite paid off in the past. The final pass hasn't quite worked out. And I think that's happened again more recently, which is why we've seen the dip in results. But against Wolves, for instance, that transition, if teams play a high line against us and are giving us room to kind of play balls over the top, to chip things in, like Brighton did at the Bridge, Chelsea can score lots of goals in this way. And all it takes is, say, like a Jackson who last season was really poor at it. This season got much better at timing his run and not being offside. And so I think teams are starting to learn to kind of play a little bit more. And which is what we've seen a little bit more of a struggle with is these deeper blocks. When we're playing against deeper block, we can't kind of do this transition as much. So, yeah, I think when we are, and I'd like to think, obviously, against Bournemouth, a team who are playing, it's mad to say obviously about Bournemouth about this, but a team who this season are playing unbelievably well and wanting to play kind of forefront attacking football where you are playing a high line. Actually, this might come into our playbook, and so something which I'd say to be aware about. And we might even see, like you might see, because of it, if you're not playing a deeper line, you might see a Neto on the left wing and a Madueke on the right.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious. Like we definitely don't play deep. We play a high press. I wouldn't say like we're not as I wouldn't say bad. We're not as radical as Brighton in the fact that our back four aren't that high up, but our front sort of four are, and you can definitely bypass us there and put in a good threat there. I completely forgot what I was going to say. Oh, you're talking about Neto on the right.
Left.
Left. Okay. Yeah, and that could be where you can hit us, because I don't know who we're going to play at right back, but if it's James Hill, I think he's like a centre back by trade, but like plays at right back a lot as well and has a lot. So he's not like
the equivalent of when like Levi Cole plays left back.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
He's not the quickest. He's not the most agile. If you do that, I would have concerns, unless you play Aaron's, in which case I don't know what to expect, because Aaron's really hasn't played this season. And again, I would be concerned. And I think you'd have joy there.
Well, I think it's where also what's really interesting for Chelsea is the kind of what we're starting to see, because Lavia hasn't been fit and basically there's no other midfielders that can play the position. You're seeing Caicedo and Enzo get a little bit more tired, a little bit quicker now. And so that'll be an interesting one where, again, Enzo against Palace, you could tell he was a little bit knackered and not getting into the right position or making the wrong decision in terms of who he's pressing. And so you might get a little bit of fun from that as well when we're in the transition, because it might not quite work.
Well, that's the thing. We also play, it's slightly different to you, but we do play transitional. And essentially, you were saying transitional doesn't necessarily mean like super direct. Yeah, transitional doesn't necessarily mean direct, but in terms of us, it really does. Like, we are just kind of bomb forward as soon as you get the ball. And if your midfield is kind of feeling a bit tired, we can definitely hit you there. And in midfield is a real strength for us. Like obviously, Christie and Cook. We could, if you are feeling tired legs, I think perhaps later on in the game, which you've struggled with conceding late on, and
yes,
we've had joy in scoring late on, we could 100% hit you there.
Let's hope we're 3-0 up by that point or something.
But yeah, I think it'll be a really interesting game, because we both clearly have strengths and we both have a couple of weaknesses, but we're both two really good teams. So what is your score prediction?
Who have you got in the FA Cup this weekend?
Well, yeah, I forgot to say in the video, like it's being recorded as Evan Nilsson's been injured, so Tuesday we're quite far in advance. We are playing West Brom.
Okay.
They're not doing bad in the Championship. I think they're sixth.
My girlfriend's family are all West Brom supporters, so I've actually
really?
know a little bit about West Brom and how their season's going. Okay, interesting. Obviously, they've just lost their manager to Valencia. Who would I say? I think. Look, I'm never gonna at home. I'm not gonna predict anything. Like I'm not gonna predict not to win. So I'm gonna say a Chelsea win. We just need to score early. We need to score early. Like we've been so good. I'll go 3-1. I'll go 3-1 Chelsea. But again, I don't say that maybe with the most confidence.
Yeah, I could definitely see there being a lot of goals. For us, I could really see it like our attack either like continuing to thrive or really not, because of loss of Evan Nilsson. But he didn't start against Fulham and we were okay. So I'll go for 2-2. Quite a few goals in there. But yeah, thank you so much, guys, for watching. Make sure you subscribe for, again, lots more of these previews. Make sure you go and subscribe to Zach, watch his stuff. Great content. And I'll catch you guys later. Up the cherries.